Welcome to Thom Tuck Goes Straight to DVD. Good evening. My name is Thom Tuck, which I spell with an H. That's the Tom, not the Tuck. It's a long story as to why. Short version, I was a pretentious child. Each week, I have been examining a set of films that have perhaps not been given the necessary scrutiny in this country. This week, I will be having a gander at a garish and in many ways old-fashioned genre. Episode 4. The all-singing, all-dancing Technicolor world of Bollywood. In the other episodes of this programme, I've looked at films that are, to put it charitably, mega bobbins. But that is not a necessary component for qualification for this show. They merely have not to have been given a proper cinema release in either this country or in America. And technically, Bollywood films do qualify. Even though you can watch them in a cinema down the Edgware Road or in Bradford, these are generally pretty specialist distributions. But there's another reason I wanted to include them. They have a special place in my heart. I grew up in Bangladesh, so there are scraps of Bollywood songs rattling around in my psyche. Jabi koi laki dekho meral de divana. We've all got that. Well, not that song particularly, but scraps from our childhood lurking in the corners of our consciousness. I have other things taking up valuable memory in there as well. There's an advert for San Miguel beer from the Philippines. Gulan, Gulan, San Miguel beer. I haven't undertaken a task to watch the top 10 Tagalog beer adverts of all time. That's mainly because they're a lot harder to find on DVD. Plus, when you watch a beer advert, you really want a beer, and then very little writing gets done. So Bollywood it is. Dil cheers apare hai mast mast, dil cheers apare hai mast. Like, do I have a deep affinity for these films, or do I just like a sing-song? Sexy, 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 mujhe lo bole. Hi, sexy, hello, sexy, cue bole. I think it might be the latter. But which ones to watch? I can't just watch 10 random films. You've got to have rules. Without rules, everything falls down. I mean, without rules, ping pong is just sophisticated wafting. I decided, in order to gain a decent grasp of these films, to watch the top 10 highest-grossing Bollywood movies of all time, adjusted for inflation, according to this one website I found. I'm nothing if not thorough. I think that does provide a fair sample set. Because if you were to examine the equivalent set of Hollywood films in terms of box office takings, you get 3 Steven Spielbergs, 2 James Camerons, The Exorcist and The Lion King, which I think is a fair reflection of popular Western cinema. A shark, a dinosaur, a number of aliens and a disastrous boat trip. And the first one I watched was called Dilwale Dulhania Le Jayenge, which apparently means the brave heart will win the bride, which is true, isn't it? Unless you're Mel Gibson. In which case, the English slit her throat near the start. Now, this film is number 3 on the Indian list, having made 267 crore rupees. Crore. So C-R-O-R-E. It's an Indian number. A crore is equivalent to 100 lakh. Fine, we're all on board. It was released in 1995 and stars the mononymous Kajol, which is a girl's name, and then Shah Rukh Khan, who is seemingly in everything ever made in India. He's in 4 of the top 10 films. 4! Imagine what the Hollywood equivalent would be. That's like being Leonardo DiCaprio, also being the voice of Simba, playing Galadriel and a velociraptor. It's insane! And when I was growing up, Shah Rukh Khan was a proper heartthrob in my school. In Bangladesh, all the girls had photos of him sellotaped to their folders. No one had even heard of Jamie Redknapp. Now, the Wikipedia entry for this movie describes it as a romantic comedy musical film. You don't say. Bollywood romantic comedy musical. That is all of them, isn't it? It's like saying Star Wars is a film in which people walk and talk. I mean, quite trivial, but undeniably true. Shah Rukh Khan, or SRK, he plays the character he usually plays, which is a cheeky arse who gets married at the end. Now, in this one, he's living in London with his dad, and he's supposed to have just failed university, which he finds out at the graduation ceremony. Now, from experience, if you haven't done that well, they tell you before that so you don't have to rent a gown and take photos with disappointed parents. Now, Shah Rukh was 30 when he made this, and the guy playing his dad was 40, which is painfully obvious. If this was a Hollywood film, that guy would have been in makeup for 6 hours. In Mumbai, they just put some glasses on him. Apparently that's enough. And Shah Rukh Khan, we learn the character is really good at doing stuff. We know this because he's playing rugby, and then he's going go-karting, then he's running next to a plane, which I didn't understand. And then he's bowling, and then he's on a motorcycle, and then he's playing basketball in a shell suit. Now that's a montage sequence. And then he meets a girl while he's on holiday around Europe, played by Kajol, who is a member of the British Indian diaspora, who also happens to have gone interrailing. And then they fall in love via singing. But it turns out she's engaged to be married to someone she's been set up with by her ultra-conservative dad. Yeah. And something happens which totally knocked me sideways. I was not expecting it all. They had an intermission. So, what? These films are all really long. Usually over 3 hours, and they all have an intermission in them. And I was watching this on DVD. I didn't know whether I was supposed to go and find some ice cream. But it's amazing. Couldn't someone tell Peter Jackson if he is going to make tediously long films, he does have to schedule a loo break? 2 hours, 45 minutes, you can read The Hobbit. Now, just before the intermission, Shah Rukh Khan finds a cowbell. It's important in the plot, not important now. And he looks straight down the camera and says, "I will find you." And then the aspect ratio narrows. So it goes down to just his eyes. It's a sort of burqa effect. Well, you know, a man burqa. Well, you know, a balaclava. And beneath his glimmering emeralds, it just comes up, intermission. Yeah! It's so exciting! The second half of the film is a bit like a soap opera. Well, imagine that Hollyoaks had gone colourblind and had 3 Jaeger bombs. There's a fight sequence near the end, which is classic Bollywood, by which I mean it's not great. That's the association a lot of people have with these movies, that they're a bit chonky. It's all about being slapped one way and your head going the other way, or jumping through a polystyrene door. This one is slightly better in that it's sort of strangely balletic. If ballet happened at a train station in Mumbai and involved mainly hitting. Still, he does miss most of his punches by a good foot. I think if I was directing this, I might say, you know what? I think we'll go again. And this time, sort of put your hands near his face, okay? Cheers. And it's accompanied by some hilarious Atari-style sound effects. All in all, not a bad start to our mission. When I was growing up, we would come back to Britain for the summers, and we'd tour around the country visiting friends before reboarding the BA flight to Dhaka. Other airlines are available. But the last time I flew Biman, the Bangladeshi airline, I was served an out-of-date tiny Coke. Radio 4's legal department informed me that I am sure they've improved since then. But the moment after the pressurised doors pop open and you step onto the stair car is the one I think I miss. The hammer of humidity and the alien sounds of the subcontinent. And it's not just that. I miss knowing that smothering swelter meant I was home. I didn't live in this country till I was 15, and I lived in a different place every year until I was almost 10. And then for 6 years, Bangladesh it was. And I can go somewhere warm again, but it won't be mine. I'll never own the strange, wide-bladed grass that makes you itch, whether as a function of the heat or some intrinsic property. I'll never sleep on my bed underneath my mosquito net, or spray bygone, or light a coil. I'll never again be familiar with the concrete and white iron fences that separate the lanes on Gulshan Avenue, or marvel at the rickety towers of bamboo scaffold that embrace the ever-growing metropolis. I live in London. Watching these films almost made me cry. And not in the way they were intending. It's the little things, like how people count on their fingers over there. They use every knuckle. 1, 2, 3, 4 to a finger. 3 on the thumb, and the palm makes 20. During the intermission, I turned up the central heating to exacerbate the Proustian moment. And the bougainvillea on my balcony brightened. The next one I watched was called Kucha Kucha Hota Hai, which means something is happening, apparently. But there are 3 words in the phrase something is happening. And there seem to be 4 in the Hindi phrase Kucha Kucha Hota Hai. 2 of them are the same word. Now, my Hindi grammar isn't perfect, but I'm going to guess that either means something is happening or something is happening. I'm pretty sure it's not something is happening. It made 182 crore. Crore. It's 100 lakh. It stars Kajol and Shah Rukh Khan. Again. Now, I had just watched them in the previous film. That's very confusing. If you watch 2 random films in a row as the same 2 people falling in love, you have to think, have I had enough sleep? At least Kajol plays a slightly different character. Shah Rukh Khan is a cheeky arse again. He's a university student again in this one, and he was 33 when he made it. I mean, even I'd left university at 33. Don't know why I put that in. I'm not even 33 yet. Sounded like a good thing to say. I mean, it's nonsense, isn't it? I'm 30. Now, it was made in 1998, and the first half all happens in flashback. At the beginning, he's watching his wife's funeral pyre burn and remembering things about their life. She's died due to complications in childbirth. Romantic musical comedy. But before she dies, she gives her mother-in-law 8 letters for her daughter. 1 for each of the daughter's first 8 birthdays. And she makes Shah Rukh Khan promise he'll name the daughter Anjali. Cut to 8 years later, on the eve of little Anjali's 8th birthday, and she's just so excited to read the final letter, as these are all she's ever known of her mum. It's a good setup, isn't it? And the letter, that final letter, is the story of the first half. We go into flashback. It's basically How I Met Your Mother. It's like the story of a threesome. No, love triangle, that's the word. Sometimes my mouth says to my brain, you know what, I've got this. It's a love triangle between the mother, Shah Rukh Khan, and the character played by Kajol, who is called Anjali, the woman that little Anjali is named after. An hour and a half later, we cut back to the little girl, in floods of tears, but she's clearly only got like 2 pieces of paper in her hand. How did she get that much detail into the letter? That's an hour and a half of film. Must have been a lot of metaphors. Because the flashback is set in 1990, they're all wearing 90s clothes, like too many colours, too much fluorescence, crop tops. Everybody looks like Fido Dido. And Shah Rukh Khan, at one point, is skateboarding with knee pads on. Nothing's cooler with knee pads on. You're 33, man. At that age, Jesus died for our sins. You've got a bum bag. Another thing you notice when watching these films is the sheer amount of acting that they do. They do so much acting. Indian drama school must be exhausting. The films are longer, granted, but the acting per second is higher. No one can ever just listen. They really listen. Yeah. No, I wouldn't have thought so. No. And that's not to denigrate the skill levels of these actors, because Shah Rukh Khan is bloody charming and Kajol's very, very good. But it's all the people around them. Their heightened level really distracts at points. The leads do play it relatively straight, but they're surrounded by the light relief characters who operate basically on Ham Mountain. It is unreal. Imagine if you're watching like George Clooney and Julia Roberts in a film and they're surrounded by 10 Bill Oddies. It's horrid. The intermission comes and the daughter resolves to get her namesake back into her father's life. Problem? She's engaged. There's a lot of already engaged people in these films. Shah Rukh Khan is a bit less of an arse to everyone, and then he gets married to Big Anjali, which I think is going to make breakfast confusing. I did tear up at the end of the next one I watched. Guess who's in it? Yep, Shah Rukh Khan and Kajol again. And this time, they have exactly the same character names as in the previous film. They're called Anjali and Rahul. Are you sure you couldn't think of just another name? Are you sure? It's called Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gham. And it's pretty damn good. It's lent a great deal of gravitas by having Amitabh Bachchan in it. You know Amitabh, right? He's the most famous Bollywood actor of all time. Like, Truffaut called him a one-man industry. He's 70 now and has made 180 films, which is at least 3 a year. I wonder the standard is a bit variable. Not only that, but he has the best beard in the world, and he presents the Indian version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Like, imagine if Tarrant had won an Oscar. You know? It made 172 crore. Look, it's just loads, OK? So there's a bit of background. These films deal a great deal in the language of symbolism. You know, there's a lot of being in the rain if you're sad, or jumping to a different location to show the emotion that they're singing about in the song. Oh, they're at the pyramids now. They probably feel old and pointy? No, I'm not sure I know. Mainly they seem to feel fluorescent and surrounded by people who are playing instruments that definitely aren't on the backing track. I don't know about you, but I love a trumpet I can't hear. But the audience presumably know what these things represent. They've grown up with this symbolic language that I don't really have access to. So when a scene crops up that I find really aggressively suggestive, it took me aback. Because there's hardly even any kissing in these films. So it's stuck out like a sore hernia. Shah Rukh Khan is a rich Hindu, and Kajol is a poor Muslim. Will his dad have a problem with this? Yes! But the moment when he tells her that he is in love with her is, to my mind, pure filth. He grabs some bangles off a stall and starts putting them on her wrist, but they're a little bit too small to go on her wrist. He's just forcing them on. He's saying, there are some feelings that can't be explained. I hope I'm not hurting you. These things just have to be felt. I hope I'm not hurting you. Bangle sex! Oh! Bill Bryson once said, you never feel so much part of your own culture as when you are surrounded by people who aren't. And that's what I felt like at AISD. At the American International School Dhaka, I was surrounded by people who weren't. There were Americans, Bangladeshis, Koreans, Norwegians, Dutch. Very few Englishmen. Oh my God, you're so British. You're always British to an American. So I negatively identified and constructed my Englishness by visits to the British High Commission video library and inserting the letter U into words. I had thick, well-conditioned, shoulder-length hair that I would use to entice girls. It worked. I can't count the number of times I ended lunch break with a French plait. One day at the International Club, I was playing in a volleyball tournament and our team had been knocked out. And a girl called Megan Swanson approached me. Now, Megan was 2 years older than me, and that is automatically awesome. She asked me if she could bleach my hair. I said yes. And we spent the next half hour installing blonde streaks at the front of my head. She was wearing knee pads, and I thought that was cool. Well, it was the 90s. The next one is called Om Shanti Om and stars, Shah Rukh Khan. Now, it's a lot of fun. Because it's all about Bollywood in the 70s. So everyone's wearing flares and lapels that seem to be trying to attack their shoulders. And it's pretty accessible because they're taking the mick out of Bollywood in general and the 70s. I think there are some jokes that I might have missed, because at one point Shah Rukh Khan is playing a supporting artiste and he's discussing with his friend if he should change his name in order to better become a star. And they ask a fellow hopeful what his name is, and he says, Govinda Ahuja. And the two of them just go, ha ha ha, that's hilarious! And I didn't get it. I'm wondering if I'm missing loads of jokes while watching these. One of the actresses in this is called Deepika Padukone, and I think that's funny. What do I know? I'm called Thom Tuck. And the absolute best one of these films, in my opinion, is Gajini. It's brilliant. I've been told that the Tamil original is even better, but I've only seen the Hindi one, and it's pretty sweet. Prepare yourselves for this. Imagine if Memento and Notting Hill were the same film. Then sprinkle some Ricky Martin videos on it. Piqued your interest now. It starts really violently, like with a proper fight sequence where they actually hit each other and stuff. I wasn't expecting that. The main character kills the bad guy with a tap. Like, not a dance. Although that wouldn't be that surprising when you're watching a Bollywood film. But he rips a tap out of the wall and shoves it into the baddie. Oh, there's a couple drips on the soundtrack. And you're like, oh. Then the tap guy, he goes back to his flat and he realises he's got memory loss. You know, his walls are plastered with notes and photos and giant hand-painted scrawls. Kill him! And revenge! And I'm thinking, how are they going to get songs into this? And then, just as I'm asking that question of myself, boom, flashback. Whoa! So, the good guy, it cuts back to before he gets hit on the head, and it does a pretty fun romantic comedy with loads of, like, Ricky Martin videos in it. Some of the songs, I think, have been mistranslated on the subtitles. I'm not sure he does say that, like a gushing stream, she drenches me. I'm not convinced. And then in the next song, that he wants to spew his pearls. I thought bangle sex was a bit much. I spent all my formative years in Dhaka. I had my first proper drink there, at a party at Luke's house. Now, Luke was in the year above. His brother Tim was in the year below, which meant, on average, I was invited. They were Dutch, and their surname is Diphorn. Luke, Tim and Tessa Diphorn. And their father, Bert Diphorn. Their mother, Vilma, had chosen not to take her husband's name. She'd stuck with her maiden name, good on her. It was Dickers. They were super Dutch. As in, they were much happier having drunk kids in their house than letting them run around town. So we got drunk. Tafsir and I decided that we were going to make each other drinks, which ended badly. 10 minutes later, Tafsir was asleep in the driveway, and I had been punched in the face. There was one rule for the party: don't go upstairs. Because that's where the adults are going to be, having a nice, civilised time, whilst the whippersnappers downstairs mix dangerous drinks and dance energetically to lyrically limited techno. No, 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 no one's allowed upstairs. But I was drunk and I needed a receptacle, and in hindsight I probably should have gone outside to empty the contents of my stomach. But somehow I found myself upstairs. I wandered into a smoky room and past some pretty chill Dutchmen to vomit into a sink. I left shortly afterwards. I managed to fall at the back of a rickshaw, which, when I think about it, seems impossible. I sobered up with a shower at Nathan's house, and no one needed to know. Well, until now. One thing that absolutely fascinated me when I was watching these films is what words they choose to say in English. You know, it's quite fun listening to the Hindi fly past and then all of a sudden, "Oh, Pops, you're so great." "Oh, forget it." Or, "Please." They seem to always say please and thank you in English. I'm wondering if that's maybe a legacy of colonialism. "Hello, we'd like to take your country." Don't do that. Well, you didn't say please. I came back to this country midway through GCSEs, which was quite irritating, because I was immediately a year behind everybody. It was cold and I didn't fit in. I was tanned with long hair and blonde streaks, wearing shiny shoes and carrying a briefcase. I didn't really fit in at the Cardinal Heenan Catholic High School in Leeds. We came back then because of me, so that I could live in the UK for 3 years and qualify as a British resident for university purposes. Years later, I said to my mum, I think I might have been depressed for a year. She said, yeah, we thought so. Because everything that I knew as familiar had disappeared, and I just had to start again. But there are melodies that swirl round my brain that my thoughts will always sing to. Dil che sapere hai must 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 Jabi ko lucky de comera Jabi ko lucky de comera Jabi ko lucky de comera Se levana mole ole 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 Sexy 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 mujhe lo bole Hi sexy hello sexy cute bole Gulan Gulan San Miguel beer Gulan Gulan Other lagers are available Ya Karun hai Kuche kuche hota hai Something is happening. Thom Tuck Goes Straight to DVD was written by Thom Tuck and starred Thom Tuck. The band were Foz, Ben Handysides and Martin White. The producer was Leanne Coop.